Hi, my name is Monroe Mann, and this is Before the Big Break. We're here in beautiful New York City on a sweltering summer day. And we're here at the Bowery Hotel on Bowery Street, go figure. And we're here to interview the CEO of the amazing music site, Pandora.com. Follow me, let's go see if we can find this guy. Thank you. So if you haven't checked out Pandora.com, it's the most amazing music site ever, and its story is even more incredible. Tim Westergren's story on how he built Pandora into what it is today is going to blow your mind. Follow me. And I think I see him right now, Mr. Tim Westergren. Great to see you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Thanks for your time.
Absolutely.
You've got quite the story, and I can't wait to hear all about it.
Great, looking forward to telling it.
Let's get started. Great, well I have got my handy dandy question list here, well researched about the indomitable Tim Westergren. So I'm gonna get started here because everyone knows Pandora. It is a huge success. Not only the kids are using this thing, but people that are even as old as Phil and Greg over here. On the question I want to ask you is, did you always know that Pandora was going to be such a success?
No, far from it. In fact, I didn't know we'd be Pandora, for starters. We actually launched the company as something entirely different. So not only did we not know we'd be Pandora, but even when we launched Pandora, I had no idea that it would become the success that it has been.
So that brings me to a question that's not even on the list, is what was it initially and what was it called back in the day?
So our original name was Savage Beast Technologies.
Okay.
And the original business premise was we would be developing essentially a recommendation technology. So we were going to build essentially a tool that we would license to other websites. This was back in early 2000, right when the online music scene was really taking off. And we'd provide that as a tool to other companies, portals, retailers, and so on, to make recommendations to their customers. So not be a consumer-facing website of our own, but just be sort of an ingredient technology, and spend many years chasing that business.
It's a success now. I'm just wondering, what were some of the struggles that you encountered along the way? People have been reading the news. They know that it's been an uphill. It's been an uphill battle. What are some of some of those things just like, I can't believe this is happening to me, that you encountered while getting this thing up and running?
Well, I'd say the first 4 years were kind of a steady, almost nonstop.
This was 1999-ish?
Yeah, so the very, very tail end of 99 is when I sort of had the idea.
And the light just fell. Awesome.
That was about what it was like back then.
All right, well, we're going to continue this interview because that's how it is. As an entrepreneur, you got to keep driving on despite...
You adapt.
You adapt. So tell me, this situation right here, I'm sure is somewhat similar to some of the things on a smaller scale that you endured while getting Pandora up and running.
What was our version of the light falling down?
Exactly. we want to hear it.
So very end of '99 is when I had the idea and recruited a couple of friends to start the company. So we launched it very beginning of 2000 and raised sort of our first seed financing round in March of 2000. Okay. So literally 2 weeks before the bottom fell out of the whole technology sector. So we launched right before the bubble burst. And so really, we wound up kind of launching into sort of a perfect storm in a negative sense. The investment climate dried up. The wall.
Did you already have the money? You had the seed capital?
We raised $1.5 million to get going, so we had that in the bank. But shortly after that, really sort of new investments for companies in our sector doing our kinds of things just vanished. And so that money lasted for about a year. And sort of mid-2001, the money started drying up. And we began, in order to survive, paying people a smaller and smaller portion of their salary. So what we call salary deferral.
Sure, which
technology speak. And wound up eventually not being able to pay anybody and stopped paying salaries altogether, sort of by the end of 2001, beginning of 2002, and spent about two and a half years without getting paid. Only occasionally
and
having enough money.
This is everybody on the staff. Really?
Yeah, we'd have occasionally develop a little bit of revenue or get a small bridge investment, so we might pay salaries for a couple payrolls, but generally we were pretty much bankrupt. I mean, we sort of pay somebody who really, really needed it to keep going, but it was a real long drought.
Okay. So going back to first about how you raised the initial, you said about $1.5 million. What was the procedure you took? What were the obstacles? How many people turned you down? How many people said, get out of my face? Because obviously the first is always the hardest, and I'm sure people are a lot more amenable to your requests for financing now, but in the beginning, what was that like and how did that happen?
Well, in the scheme of things, that first round was, I'd say, relatively painless. We did a bunch of pitches, so we got told no a lot, but that's to be expected. We had a couple high net worth individuals that sort of got the ball rolling for us, so we had sort of a good, strong anchor investor. So really
So that's the question. How did you find this person, and how did you convince them and get them to trust you? Going, yeah, I'll give you.
It was a friend.
A substantial, wonderful.
Yeah,
so it's true. Friends are the
not
best
an
first
uncommon
investors.
catalyst for an early financing round. Find someone that you know. And so he sort of set down the first investment. So then it was up to us to sort of fill out the investment round, which is a very different task than starting from scratch. So we raised money from angel investors, sort of small pieces that added up to $1.5 million.
Right. So would you say that first investment was the catalyst to getting everybody else to say, okay, if this person invested, maybe it's not such a lame-brained idea?
Yeah. So the lead investor, what you might call him otherwise, really that triggers everybody else, because investors don't generally like to be the first.
Of course.
They like to have company, and once there is somebody who isn't excited and enthusiastic, that can be contagious. So if you're looking at the company, you feel, oh, something's got to be there. I see something, and now it's been validated by somebody else who's willing to put their money down. So you feel more comfortable about investing.
Okay. And did the same principle apply with getting, now that you've got the company up and running, getting those first sponsors? They're essentially investing in your company in hopes that they'll get some business in return. Was it the exact same similar type of concept to get those first investors?
Yeah,
advertisers?
Yeah, I think in a way for a startup, you are doing the same thing over and over again to different constituencies. So you first do it to other founders, other people you want to bring in. You got to sell them on the idea, get them to give up something and invest their time, make a choice to join you. You have to do it to angel investors. You have to do it to the next batch of employees who are thinking about other things, and you've got to convince them to take a flyer on your company. And then you've got to do it to your customers, who have many choices as well, and you're unproven, you're new, and you have to sort of get them to sort of believe. So you get kind of used to hawking the
how did you
company.
get them, and when I say them, particularly you're talking about the customers, and they call them fans in terms of Pandora's history. How did you get them to be such ardent supporters of you and Pandora?
Well, so we're still talking pre-Pandora. So in the first 4 years of the company, we were licensing this. So I was out on the road pitching to Best Buy and Amazon and AOL.
So at this point, it wasn't even at this stage, it wasn't as it is today in terms of where
radio.
I could listen to it just by going online. You wanted to get Amazon and AOL to offer music through their site in conjunction with you.
Yeah, it was a recommendation tool. So we built this music genome project, which is the sort of foundation for what is now Pandora. But in its early years, it was sort of the basis for a recommendation tool. So one of our customers was AOL. And so you'd go to AOL, and if you were browsing the music site and you liked a particular CD, AOL would call the Music Genome Project and say, hey, this customer likes this CD, what else should they consider? And we'd send over recommendations.
Fascinating.
So it was much the same way you see it on Amazon or any retailer says, hey, you like this, try this. So we were kind of a behind the scenes, sort of the Music Genome Project inside kind of a business.
So how did it make the jump, and when did it click in your head, wow, why are we outsourcing this to others when we can do this ourselves, and much better? It's just...
Well, there were a bunch of things that led to that. It was a lousy business, the licensing business. So the big companies that we were
So you recommend people, viewers don't get in the licensing business?
It is a tough business for sure, because especially as a small company, because you don't have much leverage. So when you're pitching your wares to Best Buy or AOL, they really have all the negotiating power. So you don't tend to do as well as you think. You don't tend to get sort of what you consider to be your fair share of the upside that you're generating for them. So we kind of, really banged our heads against the wall for a long time. And we signed Borders and Barnes & Noble and Best Buy and AOL and Tower Records before they went out of business. We were signing deals with very marquee customers, but there was not a lot of money in it. And so kind of the first learning that eventually led to becoming Pandora was, this business is really not very lucrative, and it's very hard to sort of last through endless negotiation cycles. And then once you sign a deal, you're sort of a prisoner to their development cycle. So you might not wind up on the site for another year or two. So that was kind of the first thing. And then on top of that, sort of 2004 was really when we made the move from being a technology to being a radio. There were a bunch of things there. One, broadband penetration had grown dramatically. So streaming radio online was becoming kind of a mass market activity, which it hadn't been over dial-up. And radio had always been a larger and more healthy business than music retail. And we kind of had this, we'd hired a new CEO, Joe Kennedy, who was terrific, and in the course of kind of a revisioning he took the company through, we saw, wow, radio's bigger, it's healthy, and this thing that we've been building all along is perfectly suited for that kind of application. So let's take our destiny into our own hands.
Now, you just mentioned that you actually hired another CEO, which is a question. You are not the CEO of Pandora. You're the founder and
Chief Strategy Officer.
Chief Strategy Officer. Maybe you can explain a little bit about why you decided to bring an outside CEO on and how bringing him or her on contributed to the current success?
I think it's a good question, and it's one that's common to virtually every startup, at least ones that last long enough to go through kind of multiple chapters. And I think underlying the decision to do that was, for me, kind of a recognition that companies do best when the individuals in the company, whatever they do, are doing what they do best. And so, letting somebody sort of putting them in their core competency and having them focus on that. And for me, my greatest joy and I think my greatest competence has been external, has been selling, marketing, evangelizing. And I've been doing that since day one, since I started the company. And that's what I enjoyed doing. Wasn't as excited about putting together board packages and looking over financial spreadsheets and so on. I mean, I can do it, but it's not what gets me excited in the morning.
Sure.
And I think we saw we were going through a transition. We had taken a big round of investment on, and I wanted a partner, and I wanted someone who could help sort of share that load. And so it was logical. Sort of I decided it would be great to bring somebody in, and he was terrific.
What's this gentleman's name?
Is Joe Kennedy.
Joe Kennedy.
And Joe really is the one who pointed the company towards Pandora. So God bless him for coming in and kind of seeing that opportunity. And he is a consumer marketer. So his background is everything from cars. He was one of the founding members of Saturn, to eLoan. He ran eLoan for a while, which sells online mortgages. And so
were you his friend?
I'm sorry?
How did you attract him to the company, or did he find you?
Headhunter. No, good old-fashioned headhunter.
So tell me how a headhunter works when you're looking for a CEO of a major corporation.
We weren't really a major corporation, but so there are a handful of headhunting firms. These are firms whose job is to place people in companies, and they'll place everything from CEOs to engineers, And so we hired a firm called Heidrick & Struggles, which is a big global firm with an office in San Francisco. And fortuitously, one of the partners that we hired who was working on it had placed Joe in his previous job.
Wow.
And so she actually called him, Lauren Dolova called him, and he was taking time off. eLoan had gone public. He had run it as a public company for a while. He was decompressing, playing tennis, and really wasn't looking for a gig. And she said, you've got to check this out. And we met and really hit it off. I really liked him, and I think he was really intrigued enough to kind of.
So he was actually the first person you interviewed for the position?
Oh no.
He wasn't. No. Okay.
I had interviewed maybe a dozen, and it was kind of like Joe and the 11 Clowns. So it was really. He was the obvious
what were
pick.
some of not mentioning any names, of course, but what were some of the things that the people who weren't selected could have changed to have convinced you that they were the type of person to hire?
Well, selecting a CEO is a really it's a black art, I think. What really there were really two things that impressed me about Joe. One was very, very smart, and conceptually, intellectually, it took him very little time to understand what we had done, how the product worked, sort of the vision for the product. He just got that immediately, and we were having a pretty high-level conversation in a hurry. So I really had a lot of faith in his intellect. And the second thing, which I think is just about equally important, was he had a low ego. So he was someone who I thought could come into a company where there had been a legacy, and a lot of people with a real strong sense of ownership, and some really talented people, and fit in. Not sort of be someone who had kind of had his day in the sun. He had been a big hero at General Motors and had run e-loans, so high visibility jobs, and the kind of guy who'd come in and kind of get the most out of people around him. And I think it tends to be low ego people who do that, and it's turned out to be very true.
And you say low ego in what actual definition, in terms of he didn't want to come in and say, I'm the great Joe Kennedy,
yeah, it wasn't
and
about
I'm going
him.
to turn this thing around and make, he kind of wanted to be...
It wasn't about him, it was about the ideas, it was about he was very sort of respectful of what other people had done and other people's capabilities, and very honest about his own lack of knowledge, very humble. And that kind of person makes...
Where did he feel that he lacked some knowledge, where he could benefit from others?
It was a new space for him. So this was music.
This was his first technological...
No, he'd been at e-loan, so
e-loan.
That's an online, that's a technology company. Well, it's a mortgage company, but disguised as a technology company. And so certainly very experienced in online consumer products. I mean, more experienced than I was. But music was brand new to him, and the Music Genome Project, of course, was brand new to him.
Sure.
And he has retained sort of I think a really healthy respect for what each individual brings, and that's I think how you develop a very functional team.
Safari with Manny Safari, and cruise the Bahamas with Julia Roberts, go romping around with Christina and Britney, and go to the beach with Christina Ricci. The Hollywood girls are on my mind. I want them all to stand in line. I want them all to shake our hands. Tour Italy with Angelina Jolie, and go backpacking with Anna Paquin, ride my moped with Jennifer Lopez, and go to the movies with Cameron Diaz, and run in the fields with Jessica Biel. I wanna hang nightly with Keira Knightley. I think I'm in love with Anna Kournikova. I wanna know more about Mandy Moore and Cooper. The Hollywood girls are on my mind. I want them all to stand in line. I want them all to shake our hands. I want them all to be crazy more.